Hey guys, welcome back to the channel. Our first story is titled, My Husband's Ex-Mother-in-Law Tried to Ruin Our Baby Shower. I never thought I'd be dealing with drama from my husband's ex-mother-in-law of all people, especially during what was supposed to be one of the happiest times of our lives. But here I am, 7 months pregnant and caught in the middle of a ridiculous feud that threatened to turn our baby shower into a total disaster. Let me start from the beginning. I'm Avery, 32 years old, and I've been married to my wonderful husband Thomas for 3 years now. Thomas was previously married to a woman named Alina for about 5 years, but they divorced amicably when they realized they wanted different things in life. Alina wanted to focus on her career and travel the world, while Thomas dreamed of settling down and starting a family. They parted on good terms, and Thomas even remained friendly with some of Alina's family members. Enter Anya, Alina's mother and soon-to-be thorn in my side. When Thomas and I first got together, Anya seemed perfectly pleasant. She'd invite us over for dinner occasionally and always ask how we were doing. I thought it was nice that Thomas had maintained a positive relationship with his ex's family. Little did I know that Anya had ulterior motives. About a year into our marriage, Thomas and I decided we were ready to start trying for a baby. We were overjoyed when we found out I was pregnant, and we couldn't wait to share the news with our friends and family. That's when things with Anya started to get weird. When we announced our pregnancy at a family gathering, most of our relatives were thrilled. There were hugs, tears, and lots of excited chatter about nursery themes and baby names. Anya, however, looked like she just bitten into a lemon. She offered a curt congratulations and then spent the rest of the evening avoiding us. I brushed it off at first, thinking maybe she was just having a bad day. But as my pregnancy progressed, Anya's behavior became increasingly bizarre and hostile. It started with little comments here and there. Oh, you're carrying so low. In my family, that always meant it was a boy. Alina would have given Thomas a girl, I'm sure of it. Or, Alina was always so careful about what she ate. Are you sure you should be having that coffee? I tried to ignore these jabs, but they were starting to get under my skin. Thomas noticed too and had a quiet word with Anya, asking her to be more considerate. She apologized and promised to do better, but her actions told a different story. As we approached the third trimester, my best friend Lisa suggested throwing us a baby shower. I was excited about the idea, and we started planning a co-ed celebration so that Thomas and our male friends could join in the fun too. We decided to host it in our backyard with games, food, and a chance for everyone to come together before the baby arrived. Everything was going smoothly until Anya somehow got wind of our plans. She called Thomas one evening, insisting that she should be involved in the planning process. Thomas, honey, she said in that sickly sweet voice of hers, I hope you don't mind, but I've taken the liberty of reserving the community center for your baby shower. I know it's much bigger than your backyard, and I've already put down a non-refundable deposit. Thomas put the call on speaker so I could hear, and I felt my blood pressure rising as Anya continued. I've also ordered some lovely decorations. Blue, of course, since we know it's going to be a boy. Oh, and I hope you don't mind, but I've invited some of Alina's old friends. They're also excited to see you again, Thomas. I saw Thomas' jaw clench as he tried to keep his cool. Anya, that's very thoughtful of you, but Avery and Lisa have already planned the shower. We're happy with having it in our backyard, and we're not actually sure of the baby's gender yet. We want it to be a surprise. There was a pause on the other end of the line, and when Anya spoke again, her voice had a sharp edge to it. Now, Thomas, don't be silly. Alina always said you were terrible at planning events. I'm just trying to help, and of course, it's a boy. A mother knows these things. I've had enough at this point. Anya, I said, trying to keep my voice steady, we appreciate your offer, but we've already made our plans. Our shower, our choice, and please don't refer to yourself as the baby's grandmother. That's not your role here. I heard a sharp intake of breath, and then Anya's voice turned ice cold. I see. Well, if that's how you want to play it, fine. Don't expect me to come to this little gathering of yours, and don't come crying to me when it turns out to be a complete disaster. With that, she hung up. Thomas and I looked at each other, a mixture of anger and disbelief on our faces. I'm so sorry about that, Thomas said, pulling me into a hug. I had no idea she would react like this. Do you want me to talk to her again? I shook my head. No, let's just focus on our plans. If she doesn't want to come, that's her choice. We're not going to let her ruin this for us. Little did I know, Anya was just getting started. Over the next few weeks, as we continued preparing for the baby shower, strange things started happening. First, the bakery called to confirm an order for a blue "It's a Boy" cake, an order we definitely hadn't placed. Then the party supply store informed us that our order for blue balloons and streamers were ready for pickup, another order we knew nothing about. Each time we had to explain that these weren't our orders and politely declined them. It wasn't hard to guess who was behind these mix-ups, but we decided not to confront Anya directly. We didn't want to give her the satisfaction of knowing she was getting to us. But things took a more serious turn when some of our guests started calling to cancel. Hey, Avery, one of Thomas's college buddies said when he called. Listen, I hate to do this, but I don't think my wife and I can make it to the shower. We just got a call from Thomas's ex-mother-in-law saying that you guys had to change the date because of some complications with the pregnancy. Is everything okay? I felt a surge of anger and disbelief. What? That's not true at all. The date hasn't changed and there are no complications. Who told you this? He sounded confused. It was Anya. She said she was calling on your behalf because you were on bed rest or something. Man, I'm sorry. I should have checked with you directly. I assured him that everything was fine and that we still very much wanted him and Jenny to come. After I hung up, I turned to Thomas, my hands shaking with anger. Your ex-mother-in-law is calling our guests and telling them the shower is canceled. Can you believe this? Thomas's face darkened with anger. That's it. I'm calling her right now and putting an end to this. He dialed Anya's number, putting the phone on speaker so I could hear. Hello, Thomas, dear. Anya answered, her voice syrupy sweet. How are you and Avery doing? I hope everything's all right with the baby. Cut the act, Anya, Thomas said firmly. We know what you're doing, calling our guests, trying to sabotage a shower. It stops now. There was a pause, and then Anya's voice turned cold. I'm sure I don't know what you're talking about. I'm only looking out for your best interest, Thomas. After all, I've known you longer than that woman you're with now. I couldn't stay silent any longer. That woman is his wife, Anya. I'm carrying his child. Your relationship with Thomas ended when he and Alina divorced. You need to accept that and move on. You little upstart, Anya hissed. You have no idea what you've walked into. Thomas and Alina were perfect together. If it wasn't for you, you would have still been the family I know we could have been. That's enough, Thomas' voice thundered through the speaker. Anya, listen to me very carefully. Avery is my wife. We're having a baby together. That's not going to change. If you can't accept that and have behaved respectfully toward my family, then you have no place in our lives. Is that clear? The line went silent for a moment, and I thought Anya might have hung up, but then we heard a choked sob. You don't mean that, Thomas, she said, her voice trembling. After everything we've been through as a family. We're not family anymore, Anya, Thomas said, his voice gentler but still firm. I'm sorry, but that's the reality. Please stop interfering in our lives. If you can't be happy for us, then at least leave us in peace. With that, Thomas ended the call. He turned to me, looking drained but resolute. I'm so sorry you had to deal with all this, he said, pulling me into a hug. I never thought she'd go this far. I leaned into his embrace, feeling a mix of relief and lingering anxiety. Do you think she'll really stop now? Thomas sighed. I hope so, but just in case, we should probably warn our guests about what's been going on, and maybe we should think about hiring some security for the shower just to be safe. I nodded, realizing that our simple, joyful baby shower had turned to something much more complicated. But I was determined not to let Anya's antics ruin this special time for us. Little did we know, Anya had one more trick up her sleeve, one that would turn our baby shower into a day we'd never forget for all the wrong reasons. As the day of the baby shower approached, Thomas and I did our best to put the drama with Anya behind us. We called all of our guests to confirm the correct date and time, explaining that there had been some miscommunication. We decided to take the high road and not throw Anya under the bus directly. Most people were understanding, and we were relieved that it seemed like we'd have a good turnout after all. The morning of the shower arrived, and I woke up feeling a mix of excitement and nervousness. As I got dressed in the pale yellow sundress I picked up for the occasion, I couldn't shake the feeling that something was going to go wrong. Thomas noticed my unease and gave me a reassuring hug. It's going to be great, Avery, he said, kissing my forehead. Try not to worry about Anya. Today is about us and our baby. I nodded, taking a deep breath. You're right. Let's focus on the positive. We headed out to the backyard to start setting up. Our friends had arrived early to help, and soon the space was transformed with soft pastel decorations, strings of twinkling lights, and clusters of balloons. The catering company arrived to set up the food and drinks, and everything seemed to be falling into place. As the guests started to arrive, I began to relax, our backyard filled with the chatter and laughter of our friends and family, and the atmosphere was joyful and celebratory. I was in the middle of opening a gift from my cousin, an adorable set of onesies with funny sayings on them, when I heard a commotion near the gate. I have every right to be here. That's my grandchild in there. My heart sank as I recognized Anya's shrill voice. Thomas and I exchanged a worried glance before he quickly made his way to the entrance of our yard. I couldn't hear exactly what was being said, but I could see Thomas talking to Anya, his body language tense but controlled. After a few minutes, he seemed to reluctantly step aside, and Anya marched into our backyard, her face set in a determined scowl. She was dressed as if she was attending a formal wedding rather than a casual backyard baby shower, wearing a gaudy floral dress and an oversized hat. In her arms, she carried a large gift box wrapped in blue paper with a ridiculously big bow. The cheerful atmosphere of the party dimmed as people noticed Anya's arrival. I could see our guests exchanging confused and concerned looks, clearly picking up on the tension. Anya made a beeline for me, plastering a fake smile on her face. Avery, darling, you look comfortable, she said, her eyes roving critically over my sundress. I do hope you're taking care of yourself. Pregnancy can be so hard on a woman's figure. I bit back a sharp retort, reminding myself to stay calm for the sake of our guest. Thank you for coming, Anya, I said, trying to keep my voice neutral. We weren't expecting you. Oh, I wouldn't miss this for the world, she replied, her smile not reaching her eyes. After all, this is practically my grandchild we're celebrating. Before I could correct her, she thrust the large gift box into my arms. Here, open this now. I'm sure you'll love it. I looked to Thomas for help, but he just shrugged helplessly. With a sigh, I began to unwrap the gift, acutely aware that all eyes were on us. As I lifted the lid of the box, I was hit with a wave of confusion. Inside was a beautiful handmade baby blanket, but it was pink with the name Alina embroidered in one corner. I don't understand, I said, looking up at Anya. Her smile turned triumphant. Well, I thought it only fitting that the baby had something to remember its true grandmother by, and Alina always wanted a little girl named after her. I'm sure Thomas agrees. Don't you, dear? The backyard fell silent as everyone waited for Thomas's response. I could see the shock and anger on his face as he stepped forward. Anya, that's enough, he said firmly. We've talked about this. Alina is not part of our lives anymore, And this, he gestured to the blanket, is completely inappropriate. Anya's face crumbled in mock hurt. But Thomas, how can you say that? After everything Alina meant to you, I'm just trying to keep her memory alive for your child. I felt a surge of anger rising within me. This woman was trying to hijack our baby shower to insert her daughter's memory where it didn't belong. I knew I had to put a stop to this once and for all. Standing up, no easy feat at 7 months pregnant, I faced Anya directly. Anya, I think it's time for you to leave, I said, my voice steady despite my racing heart. Leave? But I've only just arrived, Anya protested, looking around at the other guests as if seeking their support. Yes, leave, I repeated, more firm this time. This shower is to celebrate the child that Thomas and I are having together. Your daughter is not part of this, and neither are you. Your behavior today and over the past few months has been hurtful and disrespectful. We've tried to be patient, but enough is enough. Anya's face flushed red with anger. How dare you speak to me like that? Thomas, are you going to let her talk to me this way? Thomas stepped up beside me, placing a supportive hand on my back. Avery's right, Anya. Your actions today have crossed a line. Please leave our property now, or we'll have no choice but to call the police. For a moment, Anya looked like she might argue further. But as she glanced around and saw the disapproving faces of our guests, she seemed to deflate. Fine, she spat, grabbing an oversized purse. But don't come crying to me when this sham of a marriage falls apart. Thomas, you'll realize your mistake soon enough. With that parting shot, she stormed out of our backyard, leaving an awkward silence in her wake. I felt a wave of emotion wash over me. Relief, anger, and a touch of sadness for the drama that had just unfolded. Thomas pulled me into a hug, and I could feel him trembling slightly. We turned to face our guests, many of whom looked uncomfortable or concerned. I took a deep breath, determined not to let Anya's antics ruin our day. Well, I said, forcing a smile, I think we should all use a drink. After that excitement, who's up for some games? There was a moment of hesitation, then Thomas's college friend, the one that had called us about the supposed schedule change, stepped forward with a grin. I don't know about you guys, but I'm dying to see Thomas try to drink juice out of a baby bottle. Let's do this! Just like that, the tension broke. People laughed and started to relax again, and soon the party was back in full swing. As I watched Thomas struggle hilariously with a baby bottle full of apple juice, I felt a sense of relief and gratitude wash over me. Yes, Anya had tried to ruin our baby shower, but in the end, she had failed. Our friends and family had rallied around us, and if anything, the incident had only strengthened our bond as a couple. As the afternoon wore on, filled with laughter, silly games, and heartfelt moments, I realized that this day would be memorable, not because of Anya's dramatic appearance, but because of the love and support that surrounded us. In the weeks that followed, we didn't hear anything more from Anya. Whether she had finally accepted the reality of our situation or was simply licking her wounds, I couldn't say. But I knew that whatever happened, Thomas and I were ready to face it. As my due date approached, we focused on preparing for our baby's arrival. We finished setting up the nursery, attended childbirth classes, and daydreamed about what our little one might be like. The drama with Anya faded into the background, becoming just another story we'd tell our child someday about the crazy time before they were born. And when our beautiful baby girl arrived 2 months later, pink and perfect and undeniably ours, any lingering doubts or insecurities melted away. As I held her in my arms with Thomas beaming beside me, I knew that we had created our own family, one built on love, trust, and the strength to overcome any obstacle. Anya's attempts to sabotage our happiness had ultimately failed. Instead, they had only served to make us stronger, more united in our love for each other and our child. And as we began this new chapter of our lives, I felt nothing but excitement for the future that lay ahead, a future that was uniquely, wonderfully ours. Here are my thoughts about this story. Holy cornflakes, talk about a nightmare ex-mother-in-law. I mean, I've dealt with some pushy relatives in my time, but this lady takes the cake. And not just any cake, a blue "It's a boy" cake that nobody asked for. The audacity of this woman. Like, hello, did you not see the bright beaming red signs in your face telling you how obviously you've crossed the line? I've got to hand it to Avery and Thomas, though. They handled this situation way better than I would have. If someone had tried to crash my baby shower with a pink blanket with another woman's name on it, I probably would have lost it. But Avery, she stood her ground like a champ. That moment when she finally told Anya off, I was ready to bust out some pom-poms. And Thomas, man, I feel for the guy. Being caught between your current wife and your ex's mom can't be easy. But he really stepped up when it counted. That phone call where he laid down the law with Anya, chef's kiss. That's how you support your partner, folks. But let's be real for a second. Who in their right mind thinks it's okay to try this and insert their divorced daughter into someone else's pregnancy? I mean, I get that Anya was probably having a hard time letting go, but come on. There's being sentimental and then there's being straight up delusional. The part that really tripped me up, though, was when Anya started calling guests and telling them the shower was canceled. That's next level sabotage right there. I was half expecting her to show up at the shower in a wedding dress screaming, "I object!" like it was a rom-com gone wrong. You know what I loved about this story? The way Avery and Thomas' friends rallied around them, especially the one college friend. MVP of the baby shower, if you ask me. Nothing breaks tension like watching a grown man struggle with a baby bottle full of apple juice. Can we get some video of that, please? I've got to say, though, I'm a little disappointed we didn't get to see Anya's reaction when the baby turned out to be a girl. Can you imagine her face after all that fuss about blue decorations and being so sure it was a boy? I bet she turned as pink as the blankets she tried to give them. But in all seriousness, what really struck me about this story was how it showed the importance of setting boundaries and standing up for your family. Avery and Thomas could have let Anya walk all over them, but they chose to stand firm and protect their happiness. That's not easy to do, especially when you're dealing with family drama. And let's not forget the real MVP of this story, that little baby girl. She had no idea about all the drama surrounding her arrival, but she brought so much joy and love with her. It just goes to show that at the end of the day, all the petty conflicts and drama don't really matter. What matters is the love you have for your family and the bonds you create. And now, guys, we will move on to the second story of the video. Please like the video if you have enjoyed it so far. The story starts like this. Parents tried to force me to care for my irresponsible sibling. Who would ever think they'd be in this position at 28 years old? Definitely not me, and probably nobody else too. My name is Evelyn, and I've always been the responsible one in my family. I got good grades in school, went to college on a scholarship, and landed a great job as a software engineer right after graduation. I've been working hard, saving money, and building a life for myself. Meanwhile, my younger brother, Landon, who's 25, has been, well, let's just say he's taking a different path. Landon was always the wild child growing up. He'd skip classes, talk back to our parents, and generally caused trouble wherever he went. Our parents tried everything, strict punishments, therapy, even sending him to military-style boot camp one summer. Nothing seemed to work. Landon would shape up for a little while, then fall right back into his old habits. I remember one incident when Landon was 16. He had been caught smoking pot behind the school gym. Instead of accepting his suspension and learning from the experience, he decided to stage a protest. He rallied a group of his friends and they camped out in front of the school, holding signs about freedom of expression and unjust drug laws. It might have been admirable if it wasn't so misguided. The protest ended when the police were called and Landon narrowly avoided juvenile detention thanks to our parents' pleading and promises of stricter home discipline. Despite all this, our parents never gave up on him. They always made excuses for his behavior, saying he was just going through a phase and that he had so much potential if he'd only apply himself. I lost count of how many times they bailed him out of trouble, paying off debts, smoothing things over with angry neighbors or teachers, even hiring lawyers when his antics crossed legal lines. Don't get me wrong, I love my brother, but as we got older, I started to resent how much of our parents' time and resources went to dealing with Landon's constant crises. When I got my scholarship, they barely acknowledged it because they were too busy trying to convince Landon not to drop out of community college. When I bought my first car with money I'd saved from my part-time job, they couldn't come to see it because they were at the police station picking Landon up after he'd been caught joyriding in a borrowed car. You can't keep supporting him like this, I insisted on a call with my mom. Just try to understand, she has pleaded with me, voice wavering over the phone. Landon is just going through a rough patch. You know how he is. He just needs a little time and he'll shape up. I highly doubted that and told my mother just as much, but she only spouted out more excuses for Landon instead of anything concrete. I didn't try to reason with her much after that. It didn't help that Dad had heard about the conversation we've had and then proceeded to call me and give me a verbal lashing over even thinking about abandoning family when they need it most. I would have felt bad, and I did a little, but then I repeated it to myself that Landon had been in this rough patch for years now. The guilt pretty much evaporated after that. I tried to be understanding. I knew Landon struggled with ADHD and had a hard time in traditional school settings, but at some point I felt like he needed to take responsibility for his own life. He was an adult now, after all. After college, I moved to the city for my new job. I'd visit home for holidays and the occasional weekend, but I was focused on building my career and my own life. I'd hear updates about Landon from our parents, usually tales of his latest misadventure or scheme that had backfired. There was the time he decided he was going to be a famous YouTuber. He maxed out 3 credit cards buying expensive camera equipment and editing software. He made a grand total of 5 videos, mostly unfunny pranks and poorly executed stunts, before losing interest. The equipment gathered dust in his room while the credit card bills piled up. I don't think his shiny new equipment saw the light of day ever again. Then there was his brief foray into the world of multi-level marketing. He got sucked into a company selling overpriced health supplements, convinced he was going to make millions. He alienated friends and family, trying to recruit them into his downline. After 6 months, he was left with a garage full of unsold products and several burned bridges. Even then, my parents cleaned up after him, apologizing to the family members he'd ostracized and shut out during that time. Landon didn't seem to care, jumping onto the next idea without looking back. One summer, he announced he was going to become a professional poker player. He spent weeks watching online tutorials and practicing with free apps. Then he took the $2,000 he'd saved from his part-time job at the gas station and headed to Las Vegas. He was back home 3 days later, broke and despondent. Once again, my parents covered for him and Landon for his horrible decisions, got out of it consequence-free and with a $1,000 loan from mom and dad that they never did get back. I tried to convince them again that Landon needed to face his independence and the responsibility that came with that on his own, but they still wouldn't listen. Landon would cycle through jobs, never keeping one for more than a few months. He'd move out of our parents' house swearing that he was going to make it on his own, only to come crawling back a few weeks later when he couldn't make rent. I remember one particularly disastrous attempt at independence. Landon had managed to hold down a job at a local warehouse for almost 4 months, a record for him. Feeling confident, he signed a lease on an apartment with 2 of his friends. They threw a massive housewarming party that resulted in noise complaints and property damage. 2 weeks later, Landon lost his job for repeated tardiness. A month after that, he and his friends were evicted for non-payment of rent and excessive noise. Our parents ended up paying the landlord to avoid a lawsuit. I tried to offer advice when I could. I'd send Landon job listings or suggest courses he could take to improve his skills, but he always had an excuse. The jobs weren't his thing. The courses were too boring, or he just wasn't ready to settle down yet. It was frustrating, but I told myself it wasn't my responsibility to fix his life. That all changed about 6 months ago. I got a call from my mom on a Tuesday evening. I was just settling in after work, ready to relax with some Netflix and takeout. As soon as I answered, I could tell something was wrong. Mom's voice was tight with stress as she explained that Landon was in trouble, big trouble. He had gotten involved with some bad people and owed them a lot of money, $50,000 to be exact. I was stunned. How had Landon managed to get himself into such deep water? As the story unfolded, I learned that Landon had fallen in with a group of small-time criminals. What started as some petty theft and minor drug dealing had escalated. Landon, always looking for the quick and easy path to success, had agreed to be the middleman in a larger drug deal, but things had gone wrong. The drugs had been stolen, whether by Landon himself or someone else wasn't clear. And now the suppliers want their money. I sat there in stunned silence as Mom explained that she and Dad had helped Landon as much as they could over the years, but they just couldn't cover this. They were hoping I could help out, not just with money, but by letting Landon come stay with me just until he gets back on his feet. I couldn't believe what I was hearing. They wanted me to drain my savings and turn my life upside down to bail Landon out of yet another mess he'd created for himself. Considering that I'd been pushing for my parents to cut off Landon's dependence before it could become a problem for years now, I refused. I tried to explain that this wouldn't really help Landon in the long run. He needed to face the consequences of his actions and make real changes in his life. He had been needing it for years now, and this was the big mess that had resulted from not giving him that. My refusal was met with shock and anger. Mom accused me of being selfish, of turning my back on family. Dad tried to reason with me, appealing to my sense of family loyalty. Even Landon called, alternating between begging for help and angrily accusing me of thinking I was too good for my own family. It was nonstop, and it became an emotionally struggling time in my life for me. The pressure was intense. For weeks, I was bombarded with calls, texts, and emails, guilt trips, emotional manipulation, angry outbursts. They threw everything they had at me. But I stood firm. I knew that giving in wouldn't really help Landon. He needed to face the consequences of his actions and make real changes in his life. As the weeks turned into months, the situation with Landon seemed to escalate. He disappeared for a while, presumably hiding from the people he owed money to. When he resurfaced, he was a mess, strung out, paranoid, and desperate. There was a particularly harrowing incident where Landon showed up at our parents' house in the middle of the night, wild-eyed and rambling about being followed. He barricaded himself in his old room, refusing to come out or let anyone in. It took hours for our parents to talk him down. They wanted to take him to the hospital, but he refused, disappearing again as soon as he calmed down. Through all of this, I maintained my stance. I wouldn't give Landon money, and I wouldn't let him move in with me. But I did research rehab programs and support groups, sending the information to both Landon and our parents. I offered to help Landon find a therapist or a career counselor, but my offers were either ignored or angrily rejected. I felt horrible doing it, but in the end, I took my hands off of the situation. If they didn't want my advice, then I would stop giving it. It was clear that my parents would never stop covering for Landon's messes, even when they'd escalated so far beyond the point of no return. The situation came to a head about a month ago. I got a call from a detective with the city police department. Landon had been arrested. The details were vague, but it seemed he had been caught trying to steal cars, presumably to pay off his debt or skip town. I went to the station, not sure what to expect. Landon looked awful, pale, gaunt, with dark circles under his eyes. But there was something else too. For the first time in a long time, he seemed clear. The wild, desperate look in his eyes was gone, replaced by the sort of resigned calm. Landon had been charged with several crimes: attempted grand theft auto, possession of stolen property, and drug possession. Given his prior record, he was looking at significant jail time. But the detective informed me that the prosecutor was willing to offer a deal if Landon cooperated with their investigation into the drug ring he'd been involved with. I urged Landon to take the deal, to use this as an opportunity to turn his life around. For a moment, I thought I saw a flicker of the old Landon, the little brother I'd loved and tried to protect. He nodded, saying he'd think about it. But as I turned to leave, Landon called out to me. I'm not so sure what had snapped, but something had changed. His voice was cold, angry. He accused me of abandoning him, of thinking I was better than him. He said if I had just helped him when he asked, none of this would have happened. His last words to me were, "I never want to see you again." I left the station with a heavy heart. I knew I'd made the right decision in not enabling Landon's behavior, but it didn't make the pain any easier to bear. In the weeks that followed, I heard updates from my parents. Landon had indeed decided to cooperate with the authorities. He had been moved to a different facility for his own protection. He was facing several years in prison, but with good behavior and participation in rehabilitation programs, he could potentially get out earlier. Our parents were devastated, of course. They vacillated between blaming themselves, blaming me, and finally, reluctantly acknowledging that Landon had made his own choices. They finally acknowledged that they did play a part in allowing that behavior to continue, and the three of us reconciled quietly. It wasn't perfect, but sorries were exchanged, and we had our tentative peace. It was a difficult time for all of us. As for me, I threw myself into my work, trying to process everything that had happened. I started seeing a therapist to deal with the guilt and grief I was feeling. Slowly, I began to come to terms with the situation. I realized that my refusal to enable Landon's behavior, while painful in the short term, had been the right thing to do. By standing firm, I had forced Landon to face the consequences of his actions. Whether he would use this as an opportunity to turn his life around remained to be seen. But at least now he had a chance. I also realized that I needed to set firm boundaries with my family. I loved them, but I couldn't let their drama and Landon's problems dictate my life. I had worked hard to build a stable, successful life for myself, and I had the right to protect that. It's been 6 months now since Landon's arrest. He's serving his sentence and, according to our parents, participating in drug rehabilitation and educational programs. He still refuses to see me or speak to me directly, but he did pass along a message through our mom. "You were right. I'm sorry." Those words brought tears to my eyes, but I know we have a long way to go. Landon has a lot of work to do to turn his life around, and our relationship may never be the same. But for the first time in years, I feel hopeful, not just for Landon, but for myself. I've started dating someone, something I've been hesitant to do before. Always worried about what crisis might pull me back home. I've taken on new responsibilities at work, even mentoring a new junior developer. I'm planning a vacation, my first real one in years, to Europe next summer. Looking back, I can see that refusing to enable Landon was the best thing I could have done for him and for myself. It wasn't easy, and there were times I second-guessed my decision. But standing firm forced Landon to confront his own issues and take responsibility for his life. I know the road ahead won't be easy. Landon will face significant challenges as he serves his sentence and eventually tries to rebuild his life. Our family dynamics have been forever altered, and it will take time to heal the rifts that have formed. And there's no guarantee that Landon and I will ever fully reconcile. But I've learned valuable lessons through this ordeal. I've learned the importance of setting boundaries and taking care of myself. I've learned that sometimes the most loving thing you can do for someone is to let them face the consequences of their own actions. I've learned that I can love and support my family without sacrificing my own well-being or enabling destructive behavior. As I sit here in my apartment writing this out for you guys to read, I feel a mix of emotions: sadness for what's been lost, hope for what might be gained, and pride in my own strength and resilience. I don't know what the future holds for Landon, for our family, or for our relationship, but I do know that by standing firm in my decisions and refusing to enable Landon's destructive behavior, I've given us all the best chance of a healthier, more honest future. The path forward isn't clear, and it certainly won't be easy. Landon and I may never fully repair our relationship. The trust that's been broken may be too difficult to rebuild, but I have hope that we both continue to grow and learn from this experience. For now, I'm focusing on my own life and goals. I'm learning to let go of the guilt and responsibility I've carried for so long. I'm building new relationships and strengthening old ones. I'm creating a life that's full and meaningful, independent of the drama that's defined our family for so long. And if the day comes when Landon is ready to have a real honest relationship, one based on mutual respect and personal responsibility, I'll be here. Not as a savior or an enabler, but as a sister who loves him and wants the best for him, even if that means loving him from a distance. In the end, I've realized that sometimes the most profound acts of love is letting someone find their own way, even when that path is difficult and painful. It's a lesson that comes at a high cost, but one that I will know will serve me and hopefully Landon for years to come. Here are my thoughts about this story. Damn, the amount of strength it must have taken for Evelyn to stand her ground and not cave to her family's pressure is just, I'm in awe. I mean, we've all had that one relative who's always in some kind of drama, right? But Landon takes it to a whole new level. 1 or 2 misdemeanors? Everybody has that in their history somewhere. But full-on felonies, grand theft auto, getting involved in selling drugs? Dude, that isn't immaturity. That's criminal behavior. I gotta admit, as I was reading through Landon's various screw-ups, I kept thinking, okay, this has to be the rock bottom, right? But nope, this guy just kept digging himself deeper and deeper. The YouTube thing had me cracking up though. I mean, who among us hasn't thought we could be the next big internet sensation? But maxing out 3 credit cards? Oof. Big point of advice, don't buy expensive equipment for your newly starting YouTube channel. Horrible idea. And you can get a decent quality on stuff like mics and cameras for much lower prices than you'd think. Hell, use your phone if you have to. But moving on, don't even get me started on the poker thing. Don't get me wrong, gambling doesn't have to be morally evil, but you have to go in with the expectation of loss, with the understanding that if you lose money, then that's on you. You don't go in gambling expecting a huge win. But real talk, when it got to the part about Landon owing money to those drug dealers, I got chills. That's some scary stuff right there. And the way Evelyn's parents just expected her to bail him out, nah, that's not cool. And in case it wasn't obvious for the Landons out there, there's a reason everybody and their grandmas warn you against getting involved in criminal business. You take a single step and suddenly you're stuck and drowning in an underwater cave because you work with the wrong people. Stay away, guys, stay away. It isn't worth it. I'll be honest, there were moments when I was reading this when I got angry at Evelyn. Like, come on, that's your brother. How can you just leave him hanging like that? But the more I think about it, the more I realize she did the right thing. It's like the saying, you can't help someone who won't help themselves. There was a wise proverb about that, I think. Something about leading a horse to water. Landon needed to hit rock bottom before he could start climbing back up. The part that really got me was when Landon was arrested and he told Evelyn he never wanted to see her again. Man, that's rough. I can't imagine how much that must have hurt. But you know what? I respect the hell out of Evelyn for sticking to her guns even then. And Landon, what did you expect to achieve by saying that? There's no winning in that situation. But guys, can we talk about the parents for a hot second? I mean, I get it. They love their kid and want to help, but at what point do you step back and realize you're not helping, you're enabling? It's a tough line to walk, and I don't envy them one bit. Actually, I do kind of judgment. Not actually, but definitely yes. What part about the fact that your son committed grand theft auto wasn't clear enough for you? It's the bright red neon writing on the wall, and they completely missed it. Now, I know some of you are probably thinking, but hey, family is everything. You gotta stick to them no matter what. And I hear you, I really do, but I think there's a difference between supporting someone and enabling them. Evelyn was willing to help Landon find rehab programs, therapists, career counselors. That's support. Giving him money to pay off drug dealers, that's enabling, and it's not going to solve the real problem. That's letting your family down and letting them keep digging until they've landed themselves in hell. Don't be like that, guys. Set boundaries, both for them and for yourself, too. Anyways, guys, I hope you enjoyed the video. Please like and subscribe, and I'll see you again tomorrow.